Hi, welcome to Reach Tip of the Day. Today's topic is syringe tip button replacement. In this demonstration, there's two different types of syringes, ADAC syringes and DCI syringes. Those are the two most common syringes. There's others, but these are the most common. In this demonstration, we're going to be going over the DCI syringe. There is another video for the ADAC syringe button replacement. But on this one, we'll be going over the DCI syringe button replacement. The DCI syringe buttons are held in by a pin on the side here. So if you see a hole on the side of the syringe head right here, you need to push that, that's what holds the buttons in. So to remove them, you can take something rigid. You can use a very small Allen wrench like this, or even a paper clip. It depends on how long it's been in there, because with disinfectants and everything, they get kind of crusty and they kind of get set in there. If you need something more aggressive, a pair of pointed pliers. But what you want to do is you want to put pressure on that point when you're slightly pushing down on the buttons. Put pressure on that little pin that holds the buttons in, and what it does is it breaks the pin loose. It pops out on one side. You grab it with a pair of pliers. Again, slightly pressing down with the buttons and pulling the pin out. And then your buttons should come out. Sometimes they come out easily with just pulling with your fingers. And sometimes they need a little bit of persuasion by just a pair of pliers or needle nose pliers, or hemostats can pull them out too. You pull your buttons out. Inside where the buttons go, there's these conical springs. They come out like so. And the reason you want to replace syringe buttons, think of the syringe buttons as an on-off valve. If the syringe is just sitting there, not being used, and it's dripping out the tip, that means the buttons need to be replaced. They're crusty and they're being held down a little bit and not closing off. Because when you're not using the syringe, nothing should be happening, only when you're pushing the buttons. So that's an indication of when you need to replace the buttons. So now we have the buttons out, the springs out. That's when you take a cotton tip applicator and you clean inside the hole. Just make sure no crust, disinfectants build up, that kind of things happen. Minerals from the water. Once you have that all cleaned out, everybody has a little bit of silicone lubricant in their office. Typically, this is a really common brand, ADAC. This little tubes last you for a long time. It's silicone lubricant. You always want to use silicone. If not, if you don't have that, you can go to a hardware store and get some silicone grease, and that also works well. So what you want to do is you want to put a little bit of silicone grease on your finger, rub it around, rub it on the buttons, make sure that they're well coated, the O-rings. And then you want to take your conical springs, place those down into the hole where the buttons go, making sure once you get them down in there that they're pointed straight up. They're not leaning against the side where the buttons go. And then you want to take your buttons, you want to push those down in the hole. They are interchangeable. And then the trick here is putting the pin back in. You don't want to just push it through, because what you're doing is when you're pushing the pin through, you're lining the pin up on one of these little grooves here, and that holds the button in. And if you miss it, and you can hit one of the little O-rings and jab it and damage the O-ring. So what you're trying to do is what you want to do when you're pushing the pin through is to slightly hold down on the buttons, not all the way down, just a little bit of pressure off them, and then slide the pin in. It should slide in with no real resistance. There is a little bit of resistance how the pin slides into the hole. But if you're finding something resistance actually stopping it, you want to play with the buttons and make sure that they're seated correctly. And then you can use a surface or a pair of pliers and just slowly push in on the pin and make sure that's nice and flush, and you're all set. And then try it out, pressurize the syringe, make sure everything's okay, and that's the replacement of the syringe buttons on the DCI syringe.